Speak or I'll break you, her husband threatened. Unaware, a Mafia boss watched a single mom. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, back to our main character. Mia Thompson had always been a survivor, but tonight, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. The rain poured heavily outside, creating a soft but steady rhythm on the window pane of her small apartment in Queens. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her worn-out sweater and pulling her long hair back into a messy bun. The bruise on her wrist, still fresh from her latest argument with Jason, her ex-husband, was hidden under the fabric, but the pain lingered. Mia had always been a fighter, but lately, her strength was starting to feel like it was slipping away. The exhaustion was starting to show in the way she moved, the way she spoke to her son, Lucas. She had been doing this alone for years, raising Lucas, keeping a roof over their heads, working long hours as a waitress, and doing everything in her power to protect him from the world she had once shared with Jason. Jason had always been unpredictable, but in the past few months, he had grown more violent, more controlling. The night before, he had barged into her apartment, yelling at her for not answering his calls, threatening her with words that still echoed in her mind. Speak, or I'll break you. Mia had barely managed to escape before he could follow through on his threats. It wasn't the first time, and she knew it wouldn't be the last. As she picked up her keys, preparing to leave for work, she heard a knock on the door. Her heart skipped a beat. She wasn't expecting anyone, and she couldn't shake the feeling that Jason was back. But when she opened the door, it wasn't Jason. Instead, a man stood before her, tall and imposing, dressed in a sharp black suit that seemed to absorb the dim light of the hallway. His eyes, dark and calculating, fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel like she was being seen for the first time. Mia Thompson? He asked, his voice calm but firm. Yes, Mia replied cautiously, trying to keep her voice steady. Who are you? My name is Damian Romano, he said, stepping forward slightly. I'm here because I've been watching you. Mia froze. The words didn't make sense. Watching me? I'm not here to hurt you. Damian continued, his voice softening, though there was something unsettling about his presence. But your ex-husband, he's not someone you want to mess with. I can offer you protection. Mia's mind raced. She had no idea who this man was, but the way he spoke, the way he moved, there was something about him that made her feel like he wasn't just a stranger. There was power behind his words, authority in the way he stood. Why would you help me? Mia asked, still unsure of what to make of him. Because I can see the pain in your eyes, Damian replied, his gaze never leaving hers. And I don't like people like Jason taking advantage of others. You don't deserve this. Mia didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to being helped by strangers, especially not someone like him. But something in his tone, in the way he regarded her, made her hesitate. She wasn't sure if she should trust him, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope. I don't need your help, she said, trying to push him away, but her voice lacked conviction. Damian stepped back, giving her space, but his eyes never wavered. You do, Mia. And if you change your mind, you know where to find me. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Mia standing in her doorway, the weight of his words hanging in the air like a promise, one she wasn't sure she was ready to accept. After the encounter with Damian Romano, Mia couldn't shake off the feeling that something had shifted in her life. She had been through so much, so many years of pain, struggling to raise Lucas on her own while dealing with an unpredictable and abusive ex-husband. But now, a stranger, a man who seemed to have more power than anyone she had ever known, had stepped into her world. She had tried to brush him off, but his words lingered in her mind. You don't deserve this. They haunted her, making her question everything. Was she really doing enough to protect Lucas? Was there a way out of this nightmare with Jason? That night, as Mia lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, she couldn't help but wonder if Damian was right. Could she trust him? Could she trust anyone again? The sound of Lucas's soft breathing from his room brought her back to the present. He was everything to her. He was the reason she fought, the reason she kept going. Mia knew she had to protect him, no matter the cost. The next day, Mia went to work at the small cafe she had been working at for the past few months. She was exhausted, her body ached from the long shifts, but she had to keep going. The bills didn't stop coming, and Lucas needed her. As she wiped down a table, her mind kept drifting back to Damien. She wondered what he meant by offering her protection. Was it just a gesture, or was there something more to it? As if on cue, the bell above the cafe door rang, signaling a customer. Mia looked up, and there he was again, Damien Romano, walking into the cafe like he owned the place. His sharp suit, dark eyes, and quiet confidence made him stand out even in the crowded cafe. Mia's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't come to threaten her, she knew that much. But she couldn't deny the chill that ran down her spine as he approached her. "Mia," he said, his voice low and controlled. "We need to talk." Mia felt a wave of unease wash over her, but she forced herself to remain calm. "What do you want, Damien?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Damien said, his gaze unwavering. "But I've been thinking. I don't think Jason is going to stop. And I'm not going to let him hurt you or your son." Mia's breath caught in her throat. She knew she had to say something, but the words wouldn't come. "You don't have to do this," she finally managed to say, her voice shaking. "I can handle it." Damien shook his head, his expression hardening. "You don't have to do it alone," he said. "Let me help." Mia looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of deceit, but all she saw was sincerity. It was then that she realized something. She couldn't do it alone anymore. She needed help, whether she liked it or not. She couldn't keep running, couldn't keep hiding from the reality that Jason wasn't going to stop. "What do you want me to do?" she asked quietly. Damien stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Trust me, Mia. Let me protect you. Let me make sure you and Lucas are safe." Mia took a deep breath. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. Damien wasn't going anywhere, and neither was her fear. But maybe, just maybe, she could find a way to trust him. Just this once. After their conversation at the cafe, Mia spent the next few days wrestling with her decision. Damien's offer of protection was tempting, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was crossing a line. She had always been independent, always taken care of herself and Lucas without relying on anyone. But Jason's behavior had been escalating, and Mia couldn't keep pretending she could handle everything alone. The thought of Lucas being in danger because of her stubbornness kept her up at night. Each time Damien's words echoed in her mind, she felt a weight lift, but then the doubt would creep back in. Was she making a mistake? Could she really trust him? She didn't know, but deep down, Mia knew one thing. She couldn't live in fear anymore. On the fourth day after their encounter, Mia received a call from Damien. "Mia, it's time we talk about the next steps." His voice was calm but authoritative. "Meet me at the usual place." She had no idea what the usual place was, but she had a feeling it wasn't just another casual conversation. When she arrived at the address Damien had given her, she was surprised to find herself at a sleek, modern building in the heart of Manhattan. The type of building she had only ever seen in magazines. It was clear this wasn't the world she was used to. The doorman opened the door for her, giving her a polite but curious glance as she stepped inside. She felt out of place, but also oddly reassured. Damien had a presence that made her feel like she wasn't entirely alone in this world anymore. Inside, the lobby was filled with polished marble floors, and the walls were lined with artwork that would probably cost her a lifetime salary. She had only stepped in for a few seconds when a tall figure appeared before her. "Damien." "Mia," he greeted her with a slight smile. "You made it." He looked every bit the part of the powerful man he claimed to be. His tailored suit, dark eyes, and calm demeanor made him seem untouchable, like he was the kind of man who could have anything he wanted, and he was used to getting it. "Where are we?" Mia asked, her voice betraying the nerves she was trying to suppress. "This is my building," Damien said simply. "You're safe here. No one will bother you." He led her down a long hallway and stopped in front of a door. As he opened it, Mia couldn't help but notice the lavish interior of the apartment. The furniture was elegant, and the view from the large windows showed a breathtaking scene of the city skyline. This wasn't just luxury. This was a world she had never imagined. She felt both awe and apprehension. "What's going on, Damien?" she asked, her voice quiet. "I don't know how you live like this," she added, half under her breath. Damien's eyes softened for a moment before he answered. This is a place where you and Lucas will be safe. I know it's overwhelming, but I need you to trust me. Mia swallowed hard. Trust. She had been told that before, but never by someone like Damien. I don't know what you want from me, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Damien stepped closer, not in an intimidating way, but with a calm certainty that unsettled her. I want to protect you. I want to make sure you and Lucas never have to worry about Jason or anyone else. You're not alone anymore. Mia felt a rush of emotions. Part of her wanted to run, to leave this world of power and danger behind. But another part of her, the part that had been terrified for so long, wanted to believe him. Maybe for the first time in a long while, she could let someone take the burden off her shoulders. But there was still the nagging fear, the fear that Damien had his own reasons for offering her this protection. Why me? She asked quietly, her eyes searching his face for an answer. Because I don't like seeing people like Jason take advantage of good people like you. Damien replied without hesitation. His voice was steady, like he had thought about this a lot. You're strong, Mia. Stronger than you realize. But you don't have to fight this fight alone. Mia didn't know what to say. She wanted to argue, to push back. But the truth was, she didn't have the strength anymore. The weight of everything she had been carrying was too much. She just wanted to keep Lucas safe. And maybe, just maybe, this was the way to do it. The days that followed were a blur for Mia. She spent most of her time trying to adjust to her new reality. The apartment Damien had given her was more than she had ever imagined. It wasn't just the luxury, it was the security, the feeling that she could actually breathe without constantly looking over her shoulder. But even in this new, safe environment, Mia couldn't shake the feeling of being out of place. The wealth, the power, and the unspoken rules of this world were foreign to her. Still, there was Lucas. He was happy, he felt safe, and that was what mattered the most. Every day, she told herself that the rest would work itself out. Damien, for all his quiet authority, had kept his word. He had made sure Jason stayed far away from her, and there had been no sign of him since Mia moved into the new apartment. Damien didn't ask for anything in return, and that confused Mia even more. She was used to struggling, to earning everything she had, but Damien didn't operate like that. He had told her, more than once, that her safety was his responsibility now. It wasn't until one evening, a week after Mia moved in, that she finally saw the side of Damien she hadn't yet experienced. She was sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone, when there was a knock at the door. She wasn't expecting anyone, and the sudden sound made her jump. Cautiously, she opened the door, and there stood Damien, with two men behind him. The men were dressed in suits, just like Damien, but their presence was more intimidating. Mia, Damien said, his voice steady. We need to talk. She stepped aside, allowing them to enter. What's going on? She asked, her nerves on edge. I need you to understand that this goes beyond just keeping you safe from Jason, Damien began, his tone serious. There are people who would use your past against you, who would see you as a pawn in a game you didn't ask to be a part of. It's not just Jason, Mia. There are bigger forces at play. Mia's heart raced as she listened to him. She had always known that Jason was just the tip of the iceberg, but hearing it from Damien made everything feel more real. I don't understand, she said quietly. You don't need to, Damien replied. I'll handle it, but I need you to trust me. You and Lucas are safe here, but I'm not going to sit back and let anyone threaten that safety. For a moment, Mia didn't know what to say. She had come so far from the woman who felt helpless, always running from one problem to the next. And now, Damien was offering her something she never thought she'd have, peace of mind. What do you want me to do? Mia asked, her voice steady now. Damien smiled slightly, as if he had been waiting for her to ask that question. You don't have to do anything, Mia. Just stay here. Let me take care of the rest. This is my world, not yours. The men behind him, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward, placing a small folder on the coffee table. What's this? Mia asked, eyeing the folder. Damien nodded toward it. Everything I've done to ensure that Jason won't come near you again. And it's just the beginning. There's more to be done, but I wanted you to have this. It's your security. Mia glanced at the folder, unsure of what to think. It was hard for her to accept this kind of help, but Damien had already proven he was different from anyone she had ever known. He wasn't asking for anything in return, at least not yet. He just wanted her to be safe, and that was something she could understand. Thank you, she said quietly, the words sounding small but filled with genuine gratitude. Damien's expression softened. You don't have to thank me, Mia. I'm doing this because I want to. You and Lucas are part of my world now. She wasn't sure if she was ready for this world, or if she would ever truly understand it, but for the first time in a long time, Mia felt like maybe, just maybe, she could finally relax. She could finally stop running. The days grew warmer, and Mia was beginning to settle into her new life, even if it felt like a dream she was afraid to wake up from. Damien's presence loomed over everything, offering a sense of protection she had never imagined possible. Despite the undeniable comfort she felt with the security he provided, Mia couldn't ignore the nagging uncertainty inside her. Was she truly safe? Or was this just another trap, another situation where she would owe someone something she couldn't repay? She shook off the doubts for the moment. Lucas had started to thrive. His laughter echoed through the apartment, something Mia had missed hearing for so long. That was all that mattered. She had to focus on him, on the small moments of peace they were finding together. One afternoon, after a long day of work, Mia returned home to find Damien waiting outside the apartment. His figure was calm and composed, standing tall in front of the door, waiting for her as though it were an ordinary meeting. But there was something different in his eyes, something more intense. Mia, he said, his voice steady. We need to talk. Her heart skipped a beat. What is it? She asked, trying to mask the anxiety in her voice. Damien stepped closer, his eyes scanning her face with a depth that sent a chill through her. There are people looking for you, he said, his tone serious. Mia's stomach tightened. She wasn't surprised. She had always known that her past with Jason would catch up with her one day. But to hear it from Damien made it feel all too real. Who? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. It's not just Jason, Damien replied. It's bigger than that. There are others who will use him to find you. Mia felt her knees weaken. I don't want to be part of this world, she said quietly, her voice breaking. I never asked for any of this. Damien's gaze softened, but his resolve remained. I know, and you don't have to be. But your safety, Mia, your son's safety, it's all that matters to me now. You're part of my world whether you like it or not, and I will do whatever it takes to protect you. His words settled heavily in the air between them. Mia wanted to argue, to refuse, but the truth was that she didn't have the strength to fight it anymore. She had spent so long running, so long trying to protect Lucas on her own. Maybe this was the help she had been looking for all along, even if it came in the form of a dangerous man she didn't fully understand. What do you need me to do? Mia asked, her voice steady now. Damien took a deep breath, his eyes meeting hers with a sincerity that caught her off guard. Stay here. Don't leave the apartment without me or someone I trust. I'll take care of everything. You won't have to worry about Jason or anyone else. Mia nodded slowly, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She wasn't sure if she was making the right choice, but she knew one thing. She couldn't do it alone. As the days passed, Damien kept his promise. Jason didn't dare show his face again, and the strange, unsettling presence she had been feeling seemed to vanish. But despite the relief, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that something was still lurking in the shadows. She had never been this close to the Mafia world before, and the reality of her situation was slowly sinking in. She had accepted Damien's protection, but how much of herself was she giving up in the process? Was she trading one form of control for another? She didn't know. But as the sun set each evening, and Lucas curled up next to her, safe and sound, Mia pushed those thoughts aside. She couldn't afford to dwell on them. Not yet. She had a promise to keep, to herself and to Lucas. And as long as Damien kept them safe, that was enough for now. The weeks that followed felt like a strange balance of calm and tension. Mia had grown accustomed to Damien's presence, though she was still unsure of what it meant for her life. She had lived in constant uncertainty for so long, always on edge, never sure when the next threat would arrive. But Damien's control over the situation, the way he made sure Jason stayed far away, offered her a kind of peace she had never known. However, peace came with a price. Every day, Mia wrestled with her growing feelings for him. Damien wasn't just a protector. He was a force of nature, a man with so much power and influence, and a part of her couldn't help but be drawn to him. But another part of her, the part that had been hurt and betrayed for so long, reminded her that no matter how kind he was to her, she had no place in his world. She wasn't like him. She wasn't someone who could just slip into a world of wealth, danger, and control. One evening, as the city skyline glowed in the distance, Mia stood by the window, staring out at the view. She had never imagined a life like this. The apartment Damien had provided felt like a fortress, a safe place where she could finally breathe. But at the same time, it felt like a prison. She was still haunted by the world outside, the world she had tried to escape for so long. The knock on the door brought her back to reality. She had learned to recognize the soft knock of Damien, but this time, it was different. It was urgent, filled with a sense of purpose. When she opened the door, she found him standing there, his expression serious, his eyes hard. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low. "About what?" Mia asked, her heart racing. She had learned to expect the unexpected with Damien. He stepped inside, his presence filling the room. "There's been a shift in things," he said, his voice controlled, but Mia could see the tension in his jaw. "I've been keeping an eye on Jason, but there's more to it than that." "What do you mean?" Mia asked, feeling a wave of unease settle over her. "There are people who have been watching you," Damien said, his gaze never leaving hers. "They know about your past with Jason, and they think they can use it against you. I've taken care of Jason, but there are bigger forces involved now." The words sent a chill down Mia's spine. "What do I do?" she asked, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. "You don't have to do anything," Damien replied, his voice softening. "You just have to trust me. I'll handle it." Mia stared at him, unsure of what to say. For the first time, she realized that her safety wasn't just about Jason. It was about the world Damien had been protecting her from, a world she was no longer sure she wanted to be part of. "I'm scared, Damien," she whispered, her voice breaking. Damien stepped closer to her, his hand reaching out to touch her arm in a gesture that was both protective and comforting. "I know," he said, his voice gentle. "But you're not alone anymore." Mia closed her eyes, taking in his words. She wanted to believe him, but fear still gripped her heart. How much of herself was she willing to give up for safety? How much of her soul was she willing to sacrifice to live in this world Damien had drawn her into? She didn't know the answer, but as she stood there, with Damien's presence anchoring her, she realized one thing. For the first time in years, she wasn't fighting alone. And maybe that was enough. For now, at least. Days passed, and Mia began to settle into her new life. The constant tension she had felt for so long seemed to dissipate with each passing day. Lucas was doing better, adjusting to their new surroundings, his laughter filling the apartment like a melody Mia hadn't realized she had missed. She had begun to appreciate the small moments of peace, the calm before the inevitable storm she had yet to face. Damien had kept his word. Jason hadn't come near her, and there had been no sign of him or the mysterious figures that Damien had warned her about. The weight of her past still clung to her, but the presence of Damien, his protection, offered her something she hadn't had in years, a sense of security. However, the silence in their lives was about to be broken. One evening, as Mia sat on the couch with Lucas, watching a movie, there was a knock at the door. She didn't expect anyone, especially at this hour. Her heart skipped a beat as she stood up and walked cautiously toward the door. When she opened it, she was greeted by a familiar face. Damien stood there, his expression unreadable, but his posture tense. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low and urgent. Mia's heart raced. "What's wrong?" she asked, her breath catching in her throat. Damien stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room before settling on Mia. "It's about Jason," he said, his voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of concern. "He's been more active than I thought. And there are others, people who want to take advantage of your past." Mia's stomach twisted. She had known this day would come, but hearing it from Damien made it feel all too real. "What do I need to do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Damien walked toward her, his eyes never leaving hers. "You don't need to do anything, Mia. Just stay here. Stay with Lucas. Let me take care of everything. I've made sure you're safe, but the threat is still there." Mia nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She had trusted Damien, but now the reality of what he was protecting her from hit her like a wave. She wasn't just running from Jason anymore. She was caught in a world she didn't belong to, a world where people like Damien had the power to keep her safe. But at what cost? Damien seemed to sense her hesitation. He stepped closer, his presence steadying her. "I know this is difficult, Mia, but you're not alone. You and Lucas are under my protection, and I won't let anything happen to you. Not while I'm here. Mia's breath caught in her throat as she looked up at him. For a moment, she wanted to argue, to push back, but she knew she couldn't. She had already given him her trust, and in return, he had kept her and Lucas safe. Maybe it was time she accepted that help, no matter how much she wanted to hold on to her independence. Thank you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Damien's expression softened for a moment, but it was quickly replaced with a look of determination. You don't need to thank me, he said, his voice firm. Just know that I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you're safe. No one will hurt you. Not while I'm around. Mia nodded again, feeling a strange sense of calm settle over her. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she might actually have a chance at peace. A chance at a life where she wasn't always looking over her shoulder. And for that, she would be grateful, even if it meant trusting Damien, a man who was so different from anyone she had ever known. It had been a few days since Damien's last conversation with Mia. The calm that had settled over her life was still there, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was on the horizon. The peace she had found in this new life felt fragile, like the calm before a storm. Still, she tried to push those thoughts aside, focusing on the small joys of her everyday routine. Lucas was thriving, and every day that passed without any sign of Jason felt like a victory. But it was hard to ignore the looming presence of Damien's world, the world that had now become part of her own, even if she wasn't fully ready to accept it. One afternoon, as she was preparing dinner, she heard a knock on the door. It was earlier than usual for Damien to stop by, and she felt a flicker of unease. She opened the door, her heart racing, only to find him standing there, his expression unreadable. Mia, he said, his voice steady. We need to talk. What's going on? She asked, her voice tight with worry. Damien stepped inside, and Mia closed the door behind him. He didn't look like he was in a rush, but there was a certain weight to the way he moved, something that told her he wasn't here for a casual chat. I've been keeping an eye on things, Damien began, his eyes meeting hers. Jason is still trying to make contact, though he's being more subtle about it. He's not done with you yet. Mia felt her heart drop. The relief she had felt in the past few days, the sense of safety, all seemed to evaporate with those words. How do you know? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I have my ways, Damien replied, his gaze unwavering. But what matters is that he's not giving up, and I'm not going to let him hurt you again. Mia swallowed hard. She had hoped that once Jason was gone, she could finally breathe. But it seemed like that wasn't going to happen. She had been fooling herself. The world Damien had warned her about was closing in, and no matter how much she wanted to escape, it seemed she was already in it. What should I do? Mia asked, her voice filled with both fear and resignation. Damien looked at her for a moment, his expression softening slightly. You don't have to do anything, Mia. I'll handle it. You just stay here with Lucas, and I'll take care of the rest. I'm not going to let anyone harm you. She nodded, though her mind was racing. What did that mean? What was Damien really doing to protect her, and what kind of world had she become a part of by accepting his help? I know this is hard, Damien continued, his voice gentle now. But you're not alone anymore. I'm here, and I'll make sure you and Lucas are safe. That's all that matters. Mia stared at him for a moment, trying to read the man who had become her protector. She couldn't ignore the feeling that there was more going on behind his words. But for the first time in a long time, she wasn't alone in this fight. It was a strange feeling, one that she wasn't sure she could trust, but at the same time, it was all she had. Thank you, Mia whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was thanking him for his protection or for the strange comfort his presence brought. Damien gave her a small nod, his eyes soft but determined. You don't need to thank me, he said. Just know that I won't let anything happen to you. Mia stood there, her thoughts a whirlwind. She didn't know if she could ever fully accept Damien's world, but for now, for this moment, it was enough to know that she didn't have to face it alone. It had been a few weeks since Damien had warned her about Jason's continued attempts to contact her, and Mia was beginning to feel the weight of that warning. The sense of safety she had once felt in Damien's protection now seemed like a fragile illusion. Despite Damien's assurances, there were still moments when Mia would look over her shoulder, questioning the reality of her situation. She had never been a stranger to danger, But the world she had entered with Damien was more complicated than anything she had ever faced before. One evening, as she was preparing dinner, Lucas was in the living room playing with his toys. The familiar sound of his laughter made Mia smile. She had found solace in his innocence, in his joy. But that evening, the doorbell rang, and the sudden sound of it made her heart race. It was the middle of the week, and she wasn't expecting anyone. Cautiously, she approached the door, trying to calm the unease that bubbled up inside her. When she opened the door, she was surprised to find Damien standing there, his face serious. "Mia," he said, his voice low, "we need to talk." The moment he spoke, a knot formed in her stomach. She could tell by his tone that something was different, that whatever was coming next wasn't going to be easy. "What's wrong?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Damien stepped inside, his gaze scanning the room before resting on her. "There's been movement," he said, his words careful, as though he was choosing them carefully. "Jason hasn't given up, and there are others involved now. People who are looking for you." Mia's breath caught in her throat. "Who are they?" she asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. Damien's eyes softened, but there was still a sharp edge to his gaze. "People who think they can use you against me," he said, his voice filled with quiet determination. "I've made sure Jason won't come near you. But there are others who think they can get to me by going through you." Mia felt a chill run down her spine. She had hoped, prayed even, that once Jason was out of the picture, she could live a life free from fear. But now, the reality of her situation was sinking in. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Damien stepped closer, his presence filling the room. "You don't have to do anything," he said, his tone firm. "I've already taken care of it. You just need to stay here, stay with Lucas, and I'll handle the rest." Mia looked up at him, her mind spinning with everything he was saying. She wanted to trust him, wanted to believe that everything would be okay. But she also knew that trusting Damien meant stepping deeper into a world she had never wanted to be a part of. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," she said quietly, her voice breaking with the weight of her emotions. Damien's expression softened for a moment, and he placed a hand gently on her arm. "I know," he said, his voice gentle, "but you don't have to do it alone anymore. I'm here, and I'll make sure you and Lucas are safe. You're part of my world now, and I won't let anything happen to you." Mia stood there, feeling the warmth of his touch, but also the cold weight of the world he had pulled her into. She didn't know if she could fully accept this life, this new reality, but for Lucas, she had to try. "Thank you," she whispered, though the words felt inadequate for the weight of everything she was feeling. Damien nodded, his eyes locked onto hers. "No need to thank me, Mia," he said. "Just remember that I'm not going anywhere." Mia didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, with Damien's reassurance in her mind, she realized that for the first time in a long time, she wasn't alone. And that, for now, was enough.